Yeah.
It's like, I guess I'll figure
Okay,
out what
relax.
else I can do, you know?
So now,
Now he's back on track.
he was always on the list.
Yeah.
Well, that's only right here.
Well, congratulations.
I tell you.
I know that he worked hard for this for years.
Well, yeah. And well, what's funny is today's my parents' wedding anniversary. So he called, and he looks exactly like my dad. I mean, yeah, exactly like my father. And so, he called them up and he goes, "Oh, I wanted to wish you a happy anniversary." He goes, "Oh yeah, and by the way, I got a gift for you." And they're like, "What?" And he told them, after he got off the phone with them, my phone starts blowing up. It's my parents calling me.
The one that goes on this
Ah,
side
it's
right there.
It's awesome.
And this,
Oh.
and you said the Alamo goes around to that. And this is the house that comes back to Houston. It's right here.
Goes all the way through. So to me, that is pretty hard.
Well, the hikes are slowly going away.
This is nothing to do with
I know.
trail.
I had to have,
Well, that used to be the highway.
Yeah, well,
Dermot on me,
Honestly,
close up
I-
the five
right
holes
here
in my
is State
accident.
Highway
I'm
3.
on it too.
Then became US
So
9.
I have
Then
hives all
the
over
map
the
also
place.
is incorrect.
They're slowly going away. It's finally now, bad guys getting some ash under my arm.
Oh,
I found my lotion and Benadryl with my friend. And they had to scrape off the stuff that's on the exterior, well, there's still stuff under the skin until that breaks down and gets out of my system. Right.
But anyway,
So,
but
and
yeah.
that's why I've been slower, because I got this one hole
At
that's
one
still
point, this
not
was all
closed.
this kind of like
So it's
here.
like,
And this was one of the
climb out of the truck, it's like,
government- all the-
I'm sorry.
Nothing on this
That's why you haven't
side
seen me out and about as much.
of 90.
I got the okay to go to work for a couple of hours, but that was about it. And then it's like, hey, it's like good, they get me out of the house. You can only yell at the German Shepherd so many times. But our neighborhood's the one that got hit by those guys driving around and everything, but we caught them on our camera.
It's not, it's way over here. This is the
And where
river.
they
It's
stopped,
way down.
and they got out, our camera caught them going in, our neighbors, trying to get our neighbors
That's
truck here,
water.
our neighbors truck across the street. And
top
then
across
shows the
hill.
one guy walking down the middle of the
And
street,
not the park.
with
The
our
park is
truck,
still down over
put
there.
our car, got into Joe's car,
It's
wiped out,
designed
and
to-
got into that. Luckily, we didn't catch anything in our
Comes
vehicle
along
or
and
anything.
wants to
So,
redevelop it,
they
build
know.
it,
Oh, yeah.
rebuild the building,
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff.
they have, the latest update I got, oh yeah, she's been busy.
They've been busy.
Oh, I know, but-
They gotta pay back the-
Sitting on the back row.
Oh, yeah, that's where she always is.
Yeah.
But, I was just telling them,
This more of a commercial.
Chris Kerr got called from the Navy.
This
Did you know how he applied to be a Navy officer and everything? Those results
But
came
it's
out in
not,
September.
you
And he was told back in September, he wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
He got called today, oh no, he was always, he was picked up in September.
That's what it is, that it is. Just commercial.
But it's not
Somebody,
in the
he's
city.
always on the list. So he should out 20th of January for our officer candidates.
It's in here, goes up Houston,
Oh, yeah, he's
on
excited.
this side,
All the time.
up to the hotel, and back down.
Right, right.
Now, those strips
You
up
know how
here.
we're even working in your.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's all her. But no, he was actually.
This is it.
But that was the guy that wanted to do what?
Another Navy guy in the office, just said, oh yeah, no, you didn't.
This is not
And
even-
so, it's like, oh,
this
very good.
piece
And he
is.
loves the whole.
Good.
Oh,
And
yeah,
yourself?
well, it's cold. What's gonna be a good time? Later.
This is.
You're the middle one, so
Speak quietly and carry a big pencil.
All right, how are you? Still painted, but still pink.
the place is
Well, now it's just down to my arms and my abdomen. Oh, it was worse. A couple of days after, well, a couple of days after the surgery, the hive started, and I was like, okay, so I put Benadryl cream on. Well, that Saturday morning, I got up, it had migrated on my chest, on my neck, and on my face, and I didn't want to compromise my airway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I need to go to urgent care. Yeah, because I knew it was an allergic reaction, I just didn't know if it was to the meds they had me on, or what.
Hearing this story.
Because with all my other surgeries, I've never had this problem
Lots of
before.
learning from them.
Well,
Great people.
so Christopher drove me out there because they didn't want me to drive myself yet. I hadn't been authorized to drive myself. And so the doctors and med techs and all that look at me. They go, we want to rip your skin off for you. That's how inflamed it was on my face and everything. Yeah. They're like, all right, we're going to give you a shot of this. That'll help with the itching and start pushing it out of your system. They quickly got the Dermabond on the exterior off my exterior. But there's still stuff underneath the skin because it fills in the hole until that breaks down and gets out of my system. I have hives. So I have people looking at me because I haven't been going, but when I'm out and about, they see me and they're like, "Are you contagious?"
Because you look contagious.
Exactly, because I got calamine lotion on me. And what do you normally use calamine lotion for? Either poison ivy, poisonous, or chicken pox. I'm like, no, I got hives. I made it to, because I was planning on coming to the meeting in well, no, this is in October, because I thought I was going to be, I was doing all right, doing okay. Well, no. Yeah, the November one, yeah. So the,
I missed both of them.
yeah, no, that,
I was going to be awake.
yeah. Well, the 8th of November I was going to come, but with this hive stuff, I was in no condition to go anywhere. And so it's like, well, I
I
had
heard
a,
what condition you were in, and that just brings you out.
oh my God, it was miserable. Well, and you can't take the oatmeal baths because I can't take a bath until after everything's healed up. So they turn around and luckily have an Aveeno oatmeal body wash. So I've been taking showers twice a day, putting that on me, and then like every 2 hours putting on the calamine lotion, and then taking Benadryl.
Which makes you...
Oh no, I built up a tolerance to that now.
Okay, good for you.
Oh my God, I was miserable. And I was walking around, so basically that's what my abdomen was like.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're on fire.
Yeah, and it had worked up my chest and it was on my face. But this is how I was walking around my house basically. Because any little bit of
It's contact, yeah.
any little bit of cloth or anything would just inflame it more. Well, now that warmer temperatures hit, yeah, heat and hives now. So I was like, okay.
You hate to have a sweat gland.
Oh my gosh. So of course Joe'd be like, why is the AC on? I said, because I'm hot and it keeps me from itching. Okay, never mind.
Never mind. Yeah, good answer.
Good reason. Or when it got on my back, I'd find a corner in the house and I start going like this, and I hear Joe and Christopher, stop your itching. No, I get the stop your itching.
Oh, that's scratchy.
Go take a shower. Put your calamine lotion. The special called one, I know.
Yeah,
The 28th, yeah.
and the one before that.
Yeah, because that's when they said that you had COVID, at the 28th.
So I don't get to vote on any of those.
Yeah.
I think I missed October 25th.
Yes, you were here beside me, I believe. That was the last one, just before, a couple of days before my surgery.
See what's in there yet. Is it good?
But yeah, so we understand about being under the weather and
Well, my sister showed up for dinner at my house on Saturday. And invited, she had her boyfriend over. She's the one that she met. She had cold symptoms.
yeah, yeah.
Monday,
Like, oh, you got her cold, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, and then I'm just sort of,
Yep.
I can't lose this stuff.
Yeah. The fluid on the lunch, yeah. Yeah.
Take the test. That's
So it's yeah. Boy, she didn't get anything. She's just asymptomatic. She can be a carrier and not.
I found out today that she's still
Oh my God.
she's kind of in the dark.
A little bit. It's like, oh, Christmas? No, you stay home.
My sister who came in from Denver was staying with her because she was getting out.
Right.
She thinks her
Right. Because she was going through all her treatments and everything. Yeah, yeah. Oh God.
she goes home. And so there she is in here on the plane.
Yeah, because she has to notify technically the airport, the airline, that way they can do all the notifications.
You have to let everybody else know. We had a passenger who tested
Yeah.
positive after she landed. So it's just been
You've been having fun too? I was a few minutes later than normal because I had to do the notifications. Christopher called my parents, and then we had to, call all the other people, and it was crazy. When I was leaving the house, he was talking to Scott's landlord. Our son was basically the son he didn't have. He had 3 daughters, and his 3 daughters were the 3 daughters we didn't have. So I called him up, and he was like, he did something to them.
All right, we were going to, Councilman King is going to be a little bit late. I was giving him a second, but we can go ahead. We've got a quorum, so we're going to start up. Deborah, just let me know when you're ready. See, he wouldn't have waited for me.
That's right.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order at 5:32. Let's start with roll call.
Sheena Martinez, District 1.
Paul Carey, District 2.
Phil King is not here, and Harold Stein is not here,
Herb Dyer, District 5.
and Darren Schroeder, Mayor. We have a quorum. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. The American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Pastor Matt from Discover Church. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your goodness, for your mercy, and most of all, your grace. It is by your grace that we are here today and have another day of life. Father, I pray over this meeting that you will guide and direct it, that everything that's brought up will be concerns, and that this leadership of our city will feel the needs of everyone that's here, Lord God, and make the best decision for the city. And we thank you for our leadership. We pray blessing over them in this meeting, and it's in Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, we will start with citizens' comments. If you will come up for citizens' comments, state your name and your address, and please keep the comments to 3 minutes. Unless you need more, let me know.
Yeah, my name is Bob Lee. I live at 1314 Gentiles. Did you say keep the comments to 3 minutes, 23 minutes?
2, 3, yeah. I know that you're fully capable of that, but...
Damn it. Anyway, Merry Christmas, Mayor, Council persons, and others in attendance, like Ms. Howe. Anyway, yesterday, the county commissioners revoked their agreement to have a joint city-county airport zoning board. And I don't believe it had anything to do with the content of the draft, which has undergone tremendous changes and loosened up considerably after it was presented to you, considerably. But it was a personality conflict of some kind. Be that as it may, in the state rule, which is a rule, you know, you're obligated to follow the state law. It also allows cities, if all the area is within the city's jurisdiction, to have its own airport zoning board. And so I'm suggesting you all look into the legalities of all this and see sometime after the first part of the year if it would not be in our best interest to go ahead and put together a City of Castroville Airport Zoning Board that would apply to City of Castroville's properties, and possibly if you could get a legal rig on it, maybe the ETJs. But if nothing else, you could go ahead and make the criteria for all the area that could be impacted, but just not have it apply to those areas unless they come into the city limits or they're part of some kind of a development agreement. You know, I've been around with many people on this, and I think could end up with something that's pleasing to you and satisfies the FAA and TxDOT, so there's no hiccups there. And so I would say don't get wrapped around the axle about people, because if you put the board together, it'll be the people that you pick to put on it, all five. So that's my 2 bits. And if you think you have some extra money laying around, would like to put a couple of signs up somewhere on 90 and a few other places so people know that the Lower Lacoste crossing at Constantinople is closed, it would certainly save a lot of people from turning around there going, and so I know it wouldn't cost a whole lot, less than heating the pool, right, Councilman Dyer? So very good, and Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you for your service. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak for citizens' comments? All right. Next item is consent agenda. On this, we have minutes for October 25th, 2022, regular called city council meeting, minutes for November 8th, 2022, regular called city council meeting, and minutes for November 28th, 2022, special called city council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to abstain from voting on the minutes for the November 8th and November 28th meetings, as I was absent for both of them unintentionally. But that would also leave you without a quorum, so if we could postpone this until Mr. Dyer is present, we could have it.
All right.
I think Mr. King is present.
I'm pretty sure Councilman Dyer is here.
I'm sorry, I meant King. Sorry, sir.
Absolutely. So, actually, let's just go ahead and move that until Councilman King is. Good point. We're going to table that. Next item is on public hearing on designation of reinvestment zone number 2, City of Castroville, Texas, downtown commercial district called The Zone, the description of the boundaries of the zone, the creation and composition of the board of directors for the zone, the establishment of the effective date and termination date of the zone, and the zone's benefits to the city. So we're going to open the public hearing at 5:38. Okay. Show of hands, who is here for the public meeting for that one? Okay, great. And just curious about who's interested. I want to make sure that you have a chance. Do you have any questions for us ahead of time? We'll have opportunity to discuss this as we go through this. Do you have any questions, concerns up front, or you want to hear more about what it is? And
we need to have an explanation of what it is.
right, perfect.
Can we turn up the mics? We cannot hear it all.
Yeah. Can you do that, Deborah? I think we need to go to lapel mics because it's always hard to hear that. Okay, so let's start. Who do we have for this, Leroy?
Mr. Clay Bedford.
Okay, great. Do you want to get that during the public hearing? Do you want to go into the next item, or what's best for you?
Well, the public hearing is the opportunity for the citizens to have commentary based on what they hear, and if they don't know what they're actually commenting on, it's going to be difficult for them to participate. So what I would recommend is to recess the public hearing, introduce the agenda item, let's talk about it, and then reopen the public hearing so the public has a chance to comment.
Oh, great. Okay. So we are going to recess at 5:39. It's a great way to approach it. Thank you. And so do we table this then?
No, you're just recessing.
We're just recessing this, and then we'll go into the next item, that's all right?
Yes, and go ahead and read it off.
They're better at Robert's rules than I am. Okay, so the next item is consider and take appropriate action on an ordinance designating an area within its, what's that? Designating an area within its corporate limits as reinvestment zone number 2, City of Castroville, Texas, downtown commercial district for tax increment financing purposes pursuant to Chapter 311 as amended, Texas Tax Code, and other matters in connection therewithin. And as a point of order, I'm not accepting any motions on this until we go back through the public hearing. Okay?
And that's correct. Legally, you're not allowed to anyway.
Thank you.
Not accepting them until when?
Until we go back through the public hearing. We've got to go back through that before we can have any actions.
Okay, Clay Benford representing the city. The item that's before you today is the concept of possibly creating a tax increment reinvestment zone. I think that there are a lot of misconceptions as to what a tax increment reinvestment zone is and what it does. But I think the most important thing that should be known by all of your citizens is it does not impact their tax rate. It does not provide a tax break, nor does it result in a tax increase. All it does is separate within the tax revenue that the city receives some limitations on what can be done with that money. And so the idea with the tax increment reinvestment zone is that if when money comes in from a tax revenue perspective, it typically goes into the general fund and it is dispersed across the entire universe of the different obligations that the city is supposed to undertake through its general fund budgeting. A tax increment reinvestment zone sets a geographic segregated area, and it says, okay, we are going to establish as a baseline, based on the year of formation, the ad valorem tax value of this district and the properties within it. We are going to take incremental revenue, meaning that as the property value within that designated zone increases, you are going to continue to levy your tax rate on that incremental increase in tax or in property value, and then you take some or a percentage of that revenue and you reinvest it on specific projects within that zone that are intended to improve the use, functionality, developability, whatever your goal might be of that geographic area. And so, for example, if you want a dedicated source of revenue for drainage within a particular area that you think that the drainage is an issue that causes the restricted growth or use of that area, then you can create a TERS, and as you specifically put that incremental revenue back into fixing a drainage issue, for example, then you have facilitated or promoted a more rapid improvement of that area than might happen on its own when that project has to wait with the other requirements that might be in place because of other competing needs on your general fund. So as there is a legal mechanism and structure that is required in order for that to occur, you have to create a project plan and a finance plan under the tax code, and that lays out what you think the geographic area will be, what amount of revenue that you want to participate within the zone, and the plan that's before you right now is that you would 100% of the debt service tax rate would not be part of this. That remains to the city on the entire increment. You would take the maintenance and operations tax piece of this, so basically the general fund tax, and then that would be separated, and I believe it's 75% would go to the zone with the remaining 25% that goes to the general fund, and this is so that you can continue to pay incremental variable costs that are associated with the area as it improves. And then we also have the incremental sales tax. So the sales tax that you are currently collecting is the baseline, but additional sales tax, 80% would go to the city and 20% would be diverted and held into this tax increment reinvestment zone. You also have to come up with an idea of what projects you might include and use that incremental revenue on. And so before you can include or use money from the TERS on a project within the zone, you have to either include it within the project plan or you have to modify the plan and bring it back and add it And if you'll see that in the plan that we currently have, I think if you look at Exhibit F, I believe, it talks about what these projects might be. And initially, you have a downtown master plan. You have sidewalk and landscaping improvements, September Square improvements, Houston Square improvements, wayfinding and signage, street improvements, underground electric utilities, enhanced street lighting, Highway 90 improvements, and then administrative expenses. There is more projected cost in these projects than you have anticipated revenue, incremental revenue, that this will produce over a 30-year period. But it provides you with a menu option that the TERS board could pick to reinvest this increment to hopefully to improve the geographic area that is responsible for the revenue that would be used to further enhance its improvements. And so that's what a TERS does. It takes it so that people know that within this development area, the incremental revenue from January 1st, 2022 on, over what that baseline value is, some of that money will be redirected and reinvested in improvements within the area that generates the revenue. And because there are increases in value that have been incurred in this area since January 1st, you want to create this, if you want to capture as much value as you can, you do it before the end of the 2022 calendar year, so that that you get the look-back value to January 1st of this year, because all the property will be reevaluated and revalued at January 1st of 2023. So there's not a ton of new value, but there is some that can kickstart it. And once you start collecting that money, then you can start building up a TERS fund that can be used for initially the projects that are in this plan.
Great. And if I can, I'm going to address this, and then do we table this one once we're done with this and go back to the other one?
I would recommend that if you have any questions about what I said, then ask them now, and then you'll pause this,
You'll recess and
recess, and then go back.
We're going to get to ask questions eventually.
No, ask questions now, please.
My first question, if you're not going to, if the properties in the proposed TERS are no longer going to participate in debt service payments,
They will. 100% remains with the city. None of the debt service, the incremental debt service tax, even on the increased value of the property, that's not part of this. That is always going to belong to the city, 100%.
Okay, so then I must have misunderstood, because it sounded to me like you said they won't participate in paying debt servicing, which means everybody else pays more.
No. I said it backwards. I said it. I was not clear in saying that you don't have to worry. It's the exact opposite of that. You want all of this new development, to the extent that there is any, to pay 100% of the debt service tax back to the city, because that should be diffused across all property values. So just like we do on our development agreements, where at Alsatian Oaks, for example, where there is a revenue split for paying public infrastructure, we always exclude the debt service tax from any split. And that remains with the city unabated, so that it is in your possession to keep the debt service tax as low as you possibly can.
So, and to be clear on that, because I know that council's gone through a lot of workshops with this, those are the capital projects that the debt services on the capital projects that we're using. The M&O is on the maintenance and operation. It's the regular operations cost. So the concept is that the regular operations cost, as properties are improved in this area, it doesn't cost us anything extra as a city to maintain those. They're just being improved. They're bringing in more revenue. We are setting aside a portion of that just to enhance the rest of the budget, helps us create additional opportunity in the rest of the budget, and then the additional that happens anywhere in the zone can be reinvested anywhere in the zone. And that's why we put in the different items that we might spend this on.
And an idea of that is, so I think that a downtown master plan, for example, you have a budgetary line item on here of $125,000. Without this mechanism, where does that $125,000 come from? It would have to be budgeted for and taken out of the broader general fund. Well, if you establish this fund and start putting away money annually from the increment, you can project when you will reach $125,000 that would fund the master plan that is specifically for this area. And that way it is not funded by citizens and their taxes that are outside the zone. That's the intent.
Well, and there's some other ones. If you look at the map, did everybody here get I know it's a small copy of the map, and we'll get bigger ones. So on that map, if you notice, it goes all the way from the hotel, all the way down Highway 90. It really goes basically to the far side of, or right before the car wash.
No, it includes the car wash, but to a point.
I don't believe it has the car wash in there. I think it goes up to the very last road. And the reason that it includes that is because with some of the improvements that are looking to be made up on that 35 acres, the A.B. Shearhart property, we believe that at some point there may be improvements in that area as well. Right now, there's a couple of different things in there. There's a couple of open lots, and we believe that there will probably be some expansion in there. And so we would look at, as they start improving that, set aside part of that so that we can do additional enhancements. So it's looking at where people are generating extra money, where can we reinvest that into those specific areas. Same thing down Highway 90. So as we have, like El Portal is going to be rebuilding. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully we have the streets open by then so I can get to it. But as they improve that, then we can reinvest that down Highway 90 as we look at doing traffic improvements, helping traffic flow better, helping beautify that area. So it's about taking the revenue that's being invested in here and pulling that out so it can be invested anywhere. This is not all about downtown, not all about Highway 90, not all about Providence Avenue, but it's about reinvesting in this general area.
On the south side of 90, you've got several blocks of residential property. Why are residential blocks included in?
Well, it's included in there because portions of that, basically, I think that what Scott did was try and make a very easy line, so it includes the buffer zone, what is currently the buffer zone, and so there's no impact. So if it's over, like if it's over my house, it's not over my house, but if it was over my house, it doesn't cost me any extra money. It doesn't save me any extra money, but if my house was zoned, if it was in the buffer zone, and I decided to do something that was approved through City Council to improve that as a buffer business, then it would capture that sales tax, property tax, and set that aside for reinvestment back into that overall area. Over the next number of years, we're planning on really doing some good improvements to Highway 90, increasing the flow of traffic, beautifying the different areas as people are investing in Castroville. The problem is that people are investing in Castroville, which means that there are people that are covering up good farmland, they're doing development, they're creating extra traffic, and what we're trying to do is capture some of that stuff, where they're investing in it, use that for the better public good, so that we can get some kind of additional enjoyment as we're going through these growing pains of everybody blowing down our doors.
And these are public projects. I mean, they are public. They're things that there's a requirement that you have them be for public type work, public infrastructure, public projects, which you also have discretion in what goes on the list, but I just wanted to point out that is also a legal limitation as to what this money can be spent on.
Right. It's not for personal individual gain.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, more questions?
I got one
Please.
more. On your chart, Exhibit C13, where you cover the period from 2022 to 51, the footnotes, it says you're assuming 2% inflation for the first 11 years, I think, and then if you look at the chart, it's 3% for the next 11 years, and it's 4% for the last year. Mm-hmm. And our inflation rate's 8%. Can you explain the difference? Doesn't it throw the charts off?
No, it's the inflation rate is typically you want to budget conservatively, and so just like, for example, we don't expect that 8%, at least we hope 8% inflation is not an annual compounding phenomenon that we have to live with forever. So what the purpose of this table is to give you an idea of how much incremental revenue that that might be generated by this TERS, so that you have a realistic look as to what your budget might be for determining projects and when you might be able to do them. If you come back next year and you had a 10% increase in assessed value within the zone, well, that is going to flow through all future years because you've established a new base. This plan would then be updated to show you what that new incremental revenue might look like. So this is a first indication, a first blush as to what you might realistically be able to consider. using what have been more historically normal inflation rates over a 30-year period.
So, a year ago, we thought 8% was ludicrous, but we just did a budget and it's now 8% still. So if the inflation rate continues to be way higher than the norm, that means that the amount of money that's going to be available to use in the TERS will be diminishing. Is that right?
No, it's the opposite. The inflation value that's being put in here is on the underlying home values that will impact the assessed value upon which the tax is levied to generate the increment. So you're saying that next year a $200,000 property is going to go up by 2%, and then 2% thereafter. So if the $200,000 in my hypothetical is our baseline, the 2% annual increase would be the only component that's subject to the increment. And so that's the only amount of money that would be available to the TERS to undertake projects. So if in your hypothetical, if it's 8%, there's significantly more money because you're not looking at a $204,000 house in year 2, you're looking at a $216,000 house, which is going to generate more incremental revenue. But you would also have to consider that if your assessed values increase that significantly, there's a likelihood that you're going to be dropping your tax rate because you're going to have more money than you would be able to generate, which we would have to take into account, which is why they use a 2%. And this, by the way, is not my report. There is a consultant that does this specifically, and their MuniCap is a firm that provides these projections, and this is their report. That's their recommendation for what you should use for planning.
So this term that they use, inflation factor, is really inflation factor of the assessed value.
That's correct,
not
sir.
inflation factor of the economy.
That's correct.
Oh, that clarifies.
Yep.
Thank you.
Makes sense? Okay.
That's all I have.
Great. Councilman Carey?
I have no questions, thank you. They've been answered.
I got a couple of questions. So looking at the highlighted area and everything, all of the businesses, is the city going to be working with the Chamber of Commerce to talk to businesses that fall underneath this to answer any questions or concerns they might have?
That would be a city staff question.
So we're, no. So,
Might be
I
a
mean,
good thing for us to do.
well, because it's not reinvested, like, none of the members from the chamber can directly benefit by this.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll continue, we communicate this stuff through the chamber, like, we try and keep lockstep with them about anything that's going on with businesses, but I don't know that there's any additional direct benefit, especially because the chamber has reached out beyond the city boundaries, so a lot of their membership is in the overall community. We'll continue to educate through that, probably through, I know that Scott has spoken, Darren Ham has spoken. I'm just going to note at, what is it, 5:57, thank you. My glasses are kind of halfway in between. Councilman King has arrived, thank you. So staff will go and update them on occasion about what's going on, but there's no direct impact. Like, it doesn't cost them anything, it doesn't gain them anything. It's good for overall knowledge, and we need to continue to communicate that with the community at large. But it's a great idea to make sure that they understand it. But we do this kind of education for the chamber on a regular basis.
Okay,
for sure.
because like you said, keeping them in the know with
Yeah.
communication like that, because you know how it works with the game telephone. It
Oh, yeah.
starts off right, and then
The
some
Facebook
gets
warriors,
linked
yep.
in, and people get concerned, and we have a lot of businesses in the blue area
Mm-hmm.
that they have on this map, and it's just good, you know.
Right, and part of that is through this public hearing process, and part of this is going to be through other communication that's going to come out. So, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
What I'm saying is that they're not going to see any impact,
Right, except an overall improvement to our,
except having the city spend money to make things better.
And that's stuff, like, I can tell you right now, the store with like the road that meets right there, that goes in front of the library and meets right there at 90 and everything, it's atrocious. I mean, yeah, they fill it in with the pothole repair, and it doesn't even last 2 weeks, if that, and the potholes are deep again. So the owners are like, well, what's the city gonna do? When are they gonna finally fix this right? And I just say, well, there's the pothole crew again, filling it in. So it just gives them to know that the city is being even more, diligent on trying to do things to improve across the board.
Right.
Just little communication like that.
Yeah, good idea. I like it.
And then my other one is, so we just set our tax rate with saying, okay, we're leaving it at this, so much of this money will go into like our piggy bank type thing. So this won't have, so that money set aside will be different now.
It will be. It'll be restricted to what's in this plan.
So it will be impacted, the money we set aside in the bank. It'll have rules set against some of the amount.
We'll
No.
create a separate bank account for this.
No, she's talking general fund balance.
Correct.
No, this does not touch general fund balance. That is, we can still spend that within the TER zone. The TER zone, really, it separates out the money that is the additional money that is generated because people are making investments and increasing value, increasing sales tax, and it just sets, we're going to set this aside for somewhere in this zone.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect anything that we currently have. It doesn't,
What we just established and
Nope.
everything. I'm
Doesn't touch that.
Just
This is-
making sure, because here, we did the 5 million here, 5 million here, and all of our other bills.
Yep.
Just making sure.
No, it doesn't touch that. This is really about future planning. This is about us looking short-term, mid-term, long-term. The things that we're doing right now are more short-term, mid-term, in terms of the things that we have to do.
Correct.
Improving the streets, improving the utility
Infrastructure,
system.
yes, sir.
And it's a pain,
Oh, yes, sir.
but once it's done,
It's wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there are pains through all of this, but none of that is affected by this. This
Yeah, I
is-
was a facility manager. I know those plans, so.
No, this is like specifically, like the downtown group is improving properties, so we will take the incremental from that and put it into this area. We'll take like El Portal when they rebuild and increase, what I've seen is that they're probably going to increase value on that. They'll definitely increase sales because they have been doing it all out of El Rincon. But there are these different investments as people make, and they bring up these new businesses in these areas. As the areas start to benefit, then we can use that and spread it across a wider area, specifically set aside for public improvements.
And then my last question, because you know how it is, people are going to see this map, and it's like, all right, how do you determine who's the priority?
That happens here.
Okay,
Yeah, that happens through our master planning process.
Okay.
And we need to make sure that we are diligent about talking to people about where that's going, what we're looking at.
And
That's what
why,
I
and-
kind of covered right now at a high level.
Yeah.
But I think that that's what we'll do in our workshops in next year.
Okay.
Part of the CIP planning process is
oh, yeah,
doing some set-asides here, just kind of general visioning kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll continue to do that through public meetings.
all right, thank you.
All right? So Phil, we're talking about the TERs. You have any questions?
Not at all.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Got you covered.
So then,
You got me covered.
all right, so then we are going to, how do we do this? We table this one?
Close.
Recess.
If we recess from this one? And then we go back
At what time?
to reopen the public hearing at 6:02. Public. If anybody would like to come up, ask questions, make statements, make comments, please just come up to the microphone so that the folks can hear it on the recording. Do you have questions? Do you have concerns? Is there anything that we didn't cover in this?
Yeah, I'm Phil Stevens, resident at 118 Village Path, also own Castroville Antique Shop, and then we have the properties on Highway 90 across from Duke's Meat Market. So a lot of my commercial properties are in this zone. My question to council is, what was the impetus to create this? Obviously, there was some project in mind to use that as the springboard to take this kind of action. I'm concerned, I appreciate the fact that the Old Town Castroville Revitalization Group is revitalizing that. What I'm concerned about is that all the money is going to go down Florella Street and at the expense and the
Everybody else.
time weight
Yep.
of everybody else that's in the zone. So I asked the council, what was the impetus for creating this?
If I can start with what it wasn't. So this is not an effort to support one single group. It is not developed, like, we've been talking about long-term planning. We talk about it a lot. That was what the Journey series was all about, is trying to figure out how do we do things really well. That's what, when we do the traffic coalition between the city, the county, all of the other, this is about future planning. So we always struggle with this. What do we do immediately? What's right in front of us? What are the things that are coming up that we need to be preparing for? And then long-term vision. So one of the long-term visions, if you haven't seen the Journey series, I'd encourage you to go watch that, because one of the things that they had expressed was doing more walkability between the north and south side of Highway 90, improving that into more of a boulevard style that is more attractive, more friendly, to be able to walk down. My wife likes to walk from our house down to get her nails done over by El Rincon, over at Chi Nails, if I can give them a plug. And she hates going down there because walking down Highway 90 is just awful. And so portions of this, it could be things like improving the walkability across Highway 90, some other things. It's really looking at specifically the things that I talked about before. If you look on here on Provident Avenue, I think that there are some opportunities maybe to put in some street trees, maybe to do some other enhancements, lighting, some other things. And that's the other thing along this corridor. So it is Highway 90, it is the Historic Business District, and it's Highway 90 really separating that between the river and the hill, and then east of the river. And we're looking at we have a TERS for the other part further east of the river in Alsatian Oaks. And so portions of that could go to take care of that type of area. So there was no single impetus for this. There was no single project that we have in mind.
You might explain with the restaurant, and you all working with them, and they're going to improve it from what it was, but that's...
Yeah, well, and so what he was talking about is we are working when people are rebuilding areas where they're creating new things that didn't exist before. We are working with them to take it a step further, to make it a little bit nicer. We're challenging them all. You can't force them to do it. You can't, like, if you want to do something with your place across from Jukes, we can't say you have to do this. But we can say, hey, we have some ideas that might enhance your value, enhance the overall value, and to let people know what these planning efforts are, so that you actually know what that is. And most people have been very open to doing things like that. So it's about encouraging people and having this master vision that is shared across as much of the community as possible.
I just want to make sure that the funds that are being discussed here are for everybody that's in that zone,
right,
not just one particular location.
Absolutely. This is not for Fiorella and Paris. Specifically, there will probably be things that will happen along there, but it's not like we have to make sure that it is spread consistently and nicely. And one of the things that we have to do really is master planning. We've talked about improvements in Houston Square, and it's hard to do that because that would benefit you as well and benefit like everybody that was, really the entire community. But we don't want to do that minus a master plan. So that master plan would really encompass a good portion all the way back to Highway 90, even further west than this. So it's trying to figure out, part of that master plan is traffic flows. If there's additional traffic going to Houston Square, how do we make sure that we accommodate that without encroaching on people? So it's really got to be a part of that master plan. And so part of this could go to that master plan for that.
I think you can rest assured that many of us are sensitive to that issue.
Absolutely, yes.
When he has a question?
No, I don't have a question. You keep talking about everything east of the river. The maps that were distributed have nothing east of the river.
They do.
Not on the blue maps. That's back here.
Did you get a different map?
What you have is different. It all ends at the bridge. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, it's Providence Street all the way
Here,
over
Arnie.
to pass it around. Yes, pass it around. Yeah.
Oh, this has my notes on it here. Let me
That would lead to some confusion.
Yeah.
It could.
Well, part of what we're doing is we're looking at this.
Yes, it's basically Highway 90 and Providence Street.
So we can change that.
Yeah, oh boy.
Here.
Don't know how that happened.
And the two of them out there, right, so they can see that.
The maps that's outside, that I printed off is on our website. And that went out with the announcement.
Okay.
So that doesn't have AU and AV, and AU and AV are not blue on that one.
It's just an overall
Stops at the
general.
river.
So if we have another.
So, in answer to Arnie's thing, we'll get the additional maps, but part of what we're talking about is the map. This is not a set-in-stone map. This is what we'll be talking about in the next item in what to include. I think that there are some other things that may be included in this. Councilman Dyer was suggesting maybe if there's the location they're planning to put the hotel, maybe that's included. So we'll be talking through that.
I'm Dorothy Sharp, and my address is 1409 Houston. I'm at the corner of Houston and Alsace. And on this little map, it appears the boundary line of the TIRZ takes in just my house. My question and my concern is, what does the TIRZ do to the valuation of my home? Should I decide to sell it? It is now in a TIRZ. Does that preclude it, even though it's residential? What does it do? My concern is basically, what does it do to my options as far as, should I decide to sell my home? I'm now in a TIRZ. Does that affect the valuation of my home?
It does not. The value of your home is determined by the appraisal district, which is completely separate.
I understand that.
Excuse me, really quickly.
But the
if we could-
ability to sell it.
Hold on one second.
The ability to sell it.
Right. Clay, I just want you to get in front of a microphone so that other
Okay.
people can hear.
The ability
You want to borrow mine?
to sell it, does that retain as ability to sell it as a residential property? Or now it is included in a TIRZ, and therefore further stipulations would be assigned to it that would put a buyer?
No, there is no additional zoning, there is no additional requirement, there is no additional regulatory issue as it relates to your home. There's no limitation on transfer, there's nothing that goes in the deed. All this is a funding mechanism for a capital program for the city
Okay.
and how they allocate the money.
I did attend the Journey Forward sessions and thought they were informative, but when I see this and I realize it's not a big property and it's not a very high valued property, but at this point, if I should have to sell it, I don't want it suddenly to not be sellable.
Sure.
To have that against it, that it's in a TIRZ. So you're telling me that being in a TIRZ is not going to affect that?
Correct.
Thank you. And I want to point out again, I want to make sure that these questions are answered to your satisfaction, so please make sure that we are answering to that here or after, whatever works for you. Arnie?
Just in clarification, on looking at the map and talking to her a while ago, her house is on the north side of Houston, across from the water pumps out there by Alston Corner.
Mhm.
So the TIRZ is on that side of Houston, not on the north side of Houston. That's correct. So you're,
The north side.
it's the street. You're on the north side and the street
It's
is
the
in
little
my
corner.
Well,
Yeah.
no, the water pump,
Who's on that corner?
yeah. So,
And this is my house,
Right.
right here.
so you're not.
Arnie needs to state his address.
The blue is in it.
Maybe.
Oh.
Okay.
No, the line
The yellow line,
is the street, is what the boundary is, and then it goes across the street.
Yeah, so what it's showing, the boundary of that would be things south, so you're,
So you're saying that even though this four-way stop is square, that street is not square?
so the boundaries that are on the map, it's really hard to see, I apologize for that. And it doesn't affect your property either way. It doesn't affect any of them in a limiting factor. There's no additional obligations, there's no deed restrictions. As Clay mentioned, it's simply a funding mechanism, it's a set-aside. But your place is not inside of there.
I do just have one more question.
Sure.
Since this is a TIRZ, so then this, if you're in a part of the TIRZ, then you can be rezoned commercial?
No.
No.
This has nothing to do with zoning. This is only a financial set-aside where we know that people are reinvesting. So basically, we're saying, we know people are reinvesting. We want to take part of that and use that for the better good of everybody, instead of just going into the general fund as kind of funny money. It also helps us track where that's actually being generated. It helps us track that better to understand what's happening in different areas of town.
It earmarks the funds, basically.
And it
and
earmarks
puts the
the funds, yeah.
restrictions of where they can use it is strictly going to be earmarked for that. Like in the military for medical pharmacy funds, nothing can be touched on that except for pharmacy. So that's what we're looking at here.
So it's strictly a method of setting aside revenue that we would already receive for specific project and city improvements.
We're trying to figure out how to make, how do we continue to make this nicer? If people are investing in it, again, there's always a cost to development, and we want to make sure that that cost is offset by public improvement projects, not just plan, it includes planning, but a lot of this, we've done a lot of planning in the city. I'd like to
Clay
spend
mentioned this list that we
implementation.
have of capital improvement priorities. And the list includes about almost $7 million worth of projects. And, the downtown master plan is the first one on the list. So the point is that we want to be able to fund these without raising taxes and without isolating certain areas for tax increases. So those are the projects that are the targets, and they are widespread and all-encompassing in terms of who they impact in the city.
My name is Mickey Holzhaus. I live at 514 Washington Street. Is the report that Mr. Binford referred to, Exhibit F, has it been made public? Is it available to the citizens? I have no reference to what he was referring to, nor what Mr. Carey is referring to.
Which one is?
Exhibit F.
The report.
Estimated project costs.
Oh, yeah. Well,
has that been made available, or I'm just behind?
You can just get, oh, it hasn't, it's in the packet.
Correct, but this was just printed off this evening with a few additional, I think, information, but it is
gotcha.
not,
But
this has not generally been put up on the website.
So we've been talking about something we don't know anything about.
Well, these are the capital improvement projects that the council has been
From the
discussing
budget.
from the budget cycle throughout the whole.
Okay, but again, we want citizens, we're requesting, that's all right. We're requesting citizen input on something we're not even briefed on.
Right. So we're not making decision on the projects themselves?
I know that, but how can we have an intelligent conversation if we don't know what the content is?
I think I can address
Please.
that. So there is a chicken and an egg process in the creation of a district such as this, and it is a public hearing process that goes in with give and take with the citizenry. What you have before you is called a preliminary project plan and finance plan, because it's just that. It is an introduction of the topic that you can start basing decisions on. This plan is not financed, or is not final until the TERS board is settled, created, and then ultimately comes back and adopts a final version of that. So this is the first time that it's been introduced because it still remains a preliminary plan. This is not the final plan to be adopted today. The TERS is considered today. If the TERS is considered and created, then the law requires that the plan, which was introduced tonight, will be brought back for final consideration at a future meeting. That's why you have the opportunity to have these questions tonight, so that they can go and listen to them and refine it when they actually have a plan that is going to be finalized for adoption of the new TERS board.
Did I understand that there's a impetus on trying to get this passed before the end of this year?
Yes, sir. The reason for that is because you're able to capture the appraised value based on the January 1st of 2022 values.
So given this is December the 13th, this is going to be very, very compressed.
Well, it's not so compressed in that this actually was started with the City Council first considered this around September, October, I think the first time that we talked about it. So this plan has been formulated over the last couple of months, but the actual creation of the TERS would have to occur before the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can ask before you go, do you have any specific, again, I want to hit this head on. Do you have any specific concerns about this? Is there something about this that worries you that you either want to ask about or just make a statement about?
I am always very concerned about transparency.
As are we.
Well, and I hope so. And hope is not a method. But when I sit down and I take a map off the table and I find out that it's not the current map, and I'm not being critical, it's a fact. I find out we're discussing, Mr. Binford did an excellent job discussing the program, and refers to Exhibit F, and you are the only people that know what he's talking about. It's not transparent. We're going to rush this thing through to for a deadline at the end of the year. Holiday season, people aren't paying attention. It just lacks transparency.
So I disagree with that because we have been talking about this for several months. That's why
I've been to your meetings. I've been to the meetings.
And if you want to go back and pick up,
The
give me a second,
format
please.
has been very similar.
Give me just a second, please. So the point is that we've been talking about this for several months, and we've been very transparent, and we've produced maps before, and we've asked questions about maps before, and setting the map, I don't know what the concern is about setting a map that says, this is where we believe that there's going to be improvements, like above and beyond what would normally happen, and so these are areas we want to capture this. We do need to do planning, and so we're trying to set aside mechanisms where we're capturing what other people are spending, what investors are spending. We're taking this out for the betterment of everybody, and we're not talking about what we're actually going to be spending it on, and that will be an iterative process as well that we will keep in open meetings. We'll discuss it a lot before we ever come up with this, so we've discussed this a number of times, and you are welcome to go back and review those meetings.
I've been to the meetings.
Okay, so then you would know that we have been discussing this for months and have discussed the different iterations of the map. And this is, to Deborah's point, this was the newest map that we just got, and so we're talking about what that map is. It is, things are moving quickly just by nature of what's happening. So we are trying to be nimble, keeping open communication as we go through here. There is nothing that will be done behind closed doors. There's
Not
nothing that will
implying
be
that.
done without public involvement.
I'm not implying that at all. I mentioned transparency. I never mentioned behind closed doors.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And just to, I think I understood what you said, Clay. Well, we're not coming up with the final map tonight. We're not coming up with the rules. That's all going to be for the tourist board. We're simply creating the board that then will, once that's created, then
No, I think
they
we are
start to
doing
do
the
all
map.
this.
The map and initial area is being considered tonight. The plan, this is a preliminary plan that would have to come back to be finalized. You have the ability to add property or remove property from the TERS on a go-forward basis once you've established it tonight. If you decide you mistakenly included something, you can exclude it at a future meeting. If you want to add something in by going through the same process of public hearing and publication of notice, you can add it into the TERS at a later point in time as well.
Can I ask Clay another question?
Absolutely.
The members of the TERS board, is that being established tonight? The actual members?
It is also an initial board. It is the city council, and that can be modified over time. We have some experience with the TERS in this council before. It is possible that you could ask or request the county to participate, for example, and the county could contribute their tax increment if they wanted to, which would enhance the amount of money that you're investing in this area. If you were to bring somebody in like the county, state law requires that you offer them a seat on the board as well, a representative of their entity. So these boards are not static. They are dynamic, identified to ebb and flow and evolve as the TERS evolves to.
Kyle, please.
Kyle McVeigh, 307 Madrid. I guess I would need to have it explained again that this blue area is not considered to be commercial.
Correct. This has nothing to do with zoning. This is finance only. It is a financial set-aside. It doesn't change the use. It doesn't change what you, like, it changes nothing about what people can do here.
So like the people are in this and they're considered residential now,
Yeah.
then their property would not be considered commercial.
No, not at all. Correct, completely.
I think that
Completely
this
separate.
is just the area where we intend to spend the money that is collected out
Well,
of the TERS.
collect it and spend it, and you, putting it just kind of with some general guidelines, if you include one or two residential properties, it doesn't impact them, it doesn't really impact us. I mean, just to include it, it has really, aside from, if there's incremental increase just through inflation, then we'd capture a little bit out of there, but it really has almost no effect on it.
As I said earlier, I think the people within that zone will feel no impact. They won't see anything different. Their tax bill will be the same, their zoning will be the same. nothing changes from that perspective.
Swear on that, the zoning's going to be the same?
No, the zoning will not be changed unless
Well,
they have
this
property-
does not change the zoning.
The property owner has to apply for a zoning change.
Right. Through the normal standard process. This isn't encouraging them to do it. This has nothing about trying to change. That's actually a great point. We're not trying to change all of this into commercial because it's not currently. We're not, I think it's a mistake to change anything about historic Castroville with any kind of urgency. I think that is what we slow roll. The idea here with that portion is to not make change. So no, there is no intent to make this all commercial. We're not trying to turn this into the busy place. This is just about capturing money that's going to happen in this area and reinvesting it in that area or other areas.
And now we're going to put this in writing,
It's,
so that we have it documented and everything.
It's part of the establishment of the board. And the,
those are standard rules. I mean, this does not change any of that.
Okay, that's what you say.
You know, when I first heard about this, I think a comfort thing is that the state looks over that the state came up with this thing. The state really has some pretty neat things that you'd be surprised. The state really has some really neat stuff that protects citizens. And they only let cities do so much, and what they let them do makes a lot of sense. So we're actually being looked over by the state. So, and it really is neat the way they came up with this one.
So is the zone?
Would you come up here, do you mind? I just want to make sure that everybody online can hear it as well.
because there are people listening online as well.
I'm curious if this zone, the new map just handed out, is that the zone now?
Well, as Mr. Benford explained, this would be the zone for now.
I mean,
And-
it's pretty much in stone?
No, it can be modified in the future if, if we find out that there's going to be another development, say they do,
Well, I don't mean outside.
it would have to, I think it has to be contiguous,
I'm
right?
saying like connected to this zone.
Oh, it doesn't have to be contiguous, yeah.
Another question.
Can I get your name and address?
I'm
and
Valerie Youngman. I have a home here on Paris Street and a home near Country Village.
On Perry?
Paris Street.
address? Okay, I'll look it up.
And near and Country Village area. Another question. Well, just a comment about the transparency, because I know you want to be transparent. And I came to City Hall for a map, and it would be nice if what's her name, Miss Kilhorn,
April.
if she were in the loop. She didn't know how to give me a map. She didn't know where to find one. Luckily, the city manager was here. He said he would try to find me one, and he went to his email and pulled one off of there. So that's what I got, which is the one that's, of course, not current. And I told him if he would have put it on the website, then all she would have to do is say, check the website. Great idea, right? Which it was not on the website at the time, but I believe it is now. Is that correct?
I had it on the website, they didn't know where to look, it was under public notices. Because
Okay,
part
then
of it.
but she doesn't know to tell people. I did find it after, well, I looked the other day.
Yes,
After I
because-
already had a hard copy.
Because it was attached to the public notice of the public hearing. And I
Well,
just
she needs
talked
to
with her.
be maybe in that loop, so she can be of more help.
That's a good point.
I wasn't in it at the moment, but yes, we spoke about it later because we talked about it.
Yeah, and
she knew where to
for,
find.
if it's helpful, anybody there at the window that's in contact with the public, to be in the loop, to be of more help to the patrons. Another question on
That
the
is a
map.
constant struggle, trying to make sure that we got
I'm
stuff
sorry?
out. I said that is a constant struggle, because there's so much going on right now, making sure that we have up-to-date documents, and we struggle with that. You can ask your council people. We struggle
Well,
with
at that
making sure
time, the
that we have.
city manager, actually, he told me he would try to find time to put it on the website, so he did not know it was on the website. That's what I was told. So I'm just repeating
I'm sorry, I hear you.
him. So,
They need to ask me.
another comment about the map, either map. Curious why where the Steinbach house is and Sammy's and a little beyond is not involved. Why were they left
Well,
out, for
the
lack of a better word?
Steinbach house would not have, that is a good point, because if we did improvements, it would have to be within that.
Mhm. It's a very important place.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't know that we have any current plans to improve it.
Well, I'm just curious why it's not on there.
That's city
No
property,
plans are not
taxes.
improvement. I
Well,
don't know. It
I
doesn't
think that-
matter.
I think that her point was not that we're capturing revenue out of it, but it's included in the reinvestment zone, so it could be reinvested. Is that what you're saying?
The ability to include projects, even though they're not in the zone, is permitted if the project is found by the TERS board to be contributing to the zone.
My question is, why is it not in there now?
Well, but it doesn't pay taxes, so there's no incremental revenue associated with it.
Okay, let's talk beyond and Sammy's.
I didn't come up with a map, I'm just talking about that one specific. Why
Well,
they
I'm
didn't add it,
talking
I don't know.
about everything, well,
Walmart,
Walmart and
Walmart
Sammy's,
and all
right
that.
there.
Right. So the reason that we haven't put anything beyond that on the Sammy side was we don't know that they have any plans to do any kind of improvement. If they were going to build on to Sammy's and add to that, if they just get busier, then that's great. That goes back into the general fund, takes care of our normal operating cost. But this is really for where people are improving their properties, where they're spending additional money.
So it was a matter of y'all's opinion, I guess. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it's a calculation. And so what would be the benefit of including Sammy's then?
I'm just curious why you was left out.
Because this is looking at where we believe that improvements are going to happen, because, again, this captures only a portion of the improvements that are happening. If they do nothing different, if they make the same money, then it doesn't drive any additional revenue. If there's nothing that we believe is going to substantially change the property value or the sales tax revenue, then it doesn't have really any benefit. We could include it, but it really has no
I
benefit.
guess I see you, well, on your new map, you have included the bakery across the street, same owners.
And the reason that we had looked at that is really to include Provident Avenue, because we have a developer that is looking at developing that 35 acres.
Right.
And so if they do it well, if they do it right, like we hope that they will, then there's a good possibility that some of the vacant lots there might get improved. They may put in additional services that will service that subdivision and some other areas. And so those, looking at that area is an area that might get improved. And there's a lot of buildings there, not including, I don't expect anything to happen with Habeas, but there's some other buildings there that would be
Right.
ripe for re-improvement if that's something that people wanted to invest into.
Okay, and what about all the property there that's, I thought was a new subdivision behind Sammy's?
The subdivision, oh, Cobblestone.
Yes.
So the reason that we didn't include that is because we're trying
No,
to.
I don't mean to include it. You just mentioned the other subdivision, which is the Shearhart-Habe property.
And they're not included in the zone.
Right. But you mentioned them as part of the reason why you picked those. But I'm wondering why you're, for the same reason you're not picking Sammy's with the development behind it.
We absolutely could. I mean, there's no reason to do it or not do it.
I'm not trying to put them in. I'm just trying to understand your train of thought.
Right.
And not you specifically, but whoever's
Council.
creating the zone, yes.
Right. It's looking at where, I don't believe that Sammy's is going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think
No, but
somebody's
they
going to
would
buy.
I would imagine they're going to make improvements.
No, but they're with minor improvements. So if like one of the buildings, one of the metal buildings goes away and somebody builds up something nicer there, we want to make sure that we're capturing that. If they build on one of the vacant lots that's on Provident, we want to make sure that we're capturing that. And that really, we would look at reinvesting in that area. So as they're doing, I think the best way to look at it is, as other people are doing improvements in specific areas, we want to look at how do we partner together with them to do, like, so if they start doing stuff over there and we find opportunity to improve that area over there with, so basically we're taking the money that they're generating for the city and reinvesting it. So we're just trying to find the areas that might happen and including those. And it's not, again, it's not any individual one, and it wouldn't be done, like the stuff that would be done along that area wouldn't go to benefit that developer specifically, but in terms of the general area, we would look at that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, the way I look at that, if you think about where is going to be the greatest increase in property tax, if we don't do that, the Medina County Appraisal District doesn't, but I'll guarantee you the greatest improvement or the greatest increase next year in property taxes is going to be basically Fiorella Street and Paris Street, because of all that construction going on. So this is, and that's not just the downtown development group, that's properties next door to them are gonna go up in value. That's just the way, supply and demand. But again, we don't set those rates, the Medina County Appraisal District does it. But, so if I owned one of those buildings, I guess the way I kind of think about this is I would say, man, you guys are taxing me for this. Yeah, but we're going to partner with you. If you go and spend money and improve this, and you know your taxes are going to go up, we're going to come in there and try to improve the streets and do other things that then makes it even better. Because some property owners say, man, don't fix up my street. It's going to, my taxes are going to go up. Yeah, but it's going to help your little area. And that's where Clay said, and it's just a financing mechanism. It has nothing to do with raising taxes. It has nothing to do with anything other than it kind of centralizes that money back to where the money's there just simply because people are spending more money improving their property.
I understand now.
Yeah.
And in keeping with what she commented on earlier, I think if you could keep the citizens more informed, you wouldn't have people feeling like something's going on that they're not aware of. And I spoke with the city manager about the map that was in the Hondo Anvil Herald, which was, he told me it was $1,000, and it was a total waste of money, unfortunately, because you couldn't read a thing. And I guess y'all didn't know that would happen that way, but also the packet that was handed out tonight, or should have been not enough copies here. Would that not have been something we could have gotten through Ms. Kilhorn also?
So Deborah, normally for the packets, Deborah is the one, and for public information request, that's the city secretary. This literally was, a lot of times with these city council meetings, we're developing stuff, we try and get as much of it ahead of time as possible, so we have multiple drafts, and sometimes, like, the reason that we have it sitting on the table in hard copy is because it was just completed.
Okay.
And so...
So just not enough copies were left out?
Right.
Well, there was no copies put out. The only copies that are back there would have been for the plan. What are you looking at?
You're just talking about the agenda.
Oh, the agenda. You're not talking...
No, I have the agenda.
Right.
Yeah, they read it out.
But we're talking about...
Talking about the map
information
specifically,
that they
right?
have. And I put that out right before we walked in.
Right, and that's why we're offering, we have it here, we're happy to share it with you. So just because we didn't have it out, we do have it available. We just got it, this is the first time that we've seen this map as well, but we've been talking about it for several months. Councilman Dyer has been asking some very specific questions about some of the same questions that are coming up here. I think that we've all had those questions. Where do we exclude, where do we include? So this has been an ongoing discussion, and we've been working through it in the public session. So we're trying to keep that.
Is this the zone, you say you've been doing this for quite some time, which I'm sure you have, if you say you have. Has that also been listed in the newspaper and discussion minutes and that kind of thing?
They have been in the minutes.
In the newspaper?
Right,
I mean,
not in
that's
the
the only
newspaper.
way we get information. And you know what? Not everybody gets the paper either.
Right, and that, unfortunately, we have to own,
Most of that
for
stuff is
any of our
executive
public
session.
hearings and
Almost
such,
all
we
this
have to put it in the
discussion has been
Hondo
done in
paper,
executive
because
Yes.
that's the only one we have.
Yes.
Now, I will say,
We've done it. We've talked
if
about
you would
the
like to have a copy of each packet they get every
No,
meeting-
that's not necessary.
Well, I was going to say, I do have an agenda list. and
No,
I'm
that's
happy
not
to send
necessary,
it.
and I don't even want it to be about me. I just want the citizens
Right.
informed.
We do
Because,
have a few
you know, I have a home in the zone, I have a home outside the zone, and I needed to know what does it mean to me either way? And what does it mean? I wanted to make sure that the everyday citizen who's not in the zone is still being taken care of.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
And
like I told the city manager, I'm for the underdog.
I'm sorry, you feeling the underdog?
I am for the underdog.
For the underdog. Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah,
I want to take care of everybody.
absolutely. Well, and that's why we're looking at these areas. How can we improve Highway 90 so that it is more pleasant to walk down? We've also looked at Houston Square. I think that Houston Square is ripe for some stuff. And we've looked at other things as well. I mean, Lions Park, we've been doing a lot of work on that. That's outside of this, but that's kind of a separate, that's a park where this is public areas. So we're looking at public areas. How do we make this better for
I understand.
everybody around?
If y'all will please do your best to keep people in the loop.
And
Your
part of-
staff and us, the citizens as well.
Absolutely.
And I can put what we just received up on the web I mean, I'll put as a draft.
Yep.
It'll be under the public notices, and that way you'll be able to, because it's 51 pages. And so,
Yeah, and you know.
and y'all can look at it.
Yeah. Well, I think that the commitment by this council across the board is to be as completely, not just transparent, but proactive in providing information. We're working really hard to do it, but I do appreciate you telling us where we can do better. We don't have a tremendous amount of staff that's one of our other limitations. Don't want to take that as an excuse, but understanding that.
Well, the city administrator, he mentioned that as well.
But there are things that we can do, so please continue. I mean, like with everything else, let us know where we're missing things, because it's better to know it and not being able to do anything about it than just completely miss it.
Well, and I didn't come up here to be critical. I just am trying to voice my concerns.
Appreciate it.
Because that's basically what you're asking for.
Exactly. Anybody else? All right, so then let's close the public hearing at 6:40. And we're going to come out of recess from item number 8. Do I read this again, Deborah?
If you would. if I
Okay.
can find it.
So the item we're coming back from recess is consider and take appropriate action on an ordinance designating an area within its corporate limits as reinvestment zone number 2, City of Castroville, Texas, downtown commercial district for tax increment financing purposes pursuant to Chapter 311 as amended, Texas Tax Code, and other matters in connection therewith. Let me start, since we've had a lot of discussion, do I have a motion on this to begin with?
So moved.
That we create as stated in here?
As you stated.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, discussion. Please. Councilman Dyer.
I still have a couple of issues that I'd like to get clarification before we vote on.
Absolutely.
I read in the plan, it says it assumes that the city property tax rate remains constant for the whole period out to 2051 in the plan. But yet it has a chart in there showing the last 5 years, where every year in the last 5 years, the tax rate's been different. So why are we saying, I'd like some clarification. We know that if the property tax assessment rate varies, it's going to change the amount of tax we get. If we get more taxes, we can lower the rate. If we get less taxes, we may have to raise the rate. Why does it make an assumption that the rate remains constant when we know it's not going to be constant?
Because there are two components to your revenue model. There is the assessed value growth, and there is the tax rate that you apply. For planning purposes and conservatism, for the same reason that you pick a 2% inflation escalator, you use your most recent tax as the determining factor as to what you can use for planning. This has absolutely no impact or practicality on what you actually do. If your assessed value goes up 0, it doesn't matter what you charge, because there is no incremental value that goes into this fund. If the plan goes, if your assessed value goes up and you charge a higher tax rate than you did before, or a lower tax rate, that formula is going to produce whatever tax revenue it does. But this is, again, solely for a planning purpose based on your most recent performance history. If you remained and held that constant, at what point in time could you possibly expect to have money adequate to complete this project plan? And that's all that it's intended to do.
That answers that question. Thank you.
So it's really estimating the amount of money that would go into the church that would then be available?
It just strikes me as we have so many things in this plan that we know are not accurate. We're admitting it up front.
Well, because it's a financial estimate, we know that no matter what, it's wrong. We're just trying to be
Okay, I
conservative.
agree. No matter what we do, it's going to be wrong. But this leads back to my final point.
Yep.
And this is a broader issue for me. I am a skeptic, like many of the other people that have spoken here and others that have spoken to me. I'm a little skeptical of the fact that the city council has created, I think, an impression And I heard one citizen say it tonight. I think we've created an impression, and I don't think it's true, but it's an impression, that the city council is really rah, rah, rah for the Downtown Revitalization Committee. And I just want to state for the record, I'm not. I'm a skeptic. I want to treat them like every other project. I don't think they deserve anything above and beyond what anybody else deserves. And I think Mr. Stevens made a great point tonight that we should think about. If the city council is going to be the TERS board, you're going to get more of the same. And I'd like to see the constitution of the TERS board be changed so that it is representative of small businesses and citizens that live in the proposed TERS zone, so that they feel they have more ownership of the decisions that the city ultimately takes. I know and I understand Mr. Binford's point about the urgency of getting legal steps completed by the end of the year because of good reasons, and I respect them. But my personal belief is the city council train's been moving too fast for about the last 6 months. And I'd like to see things slowed down. I'd like to have more discussion. I'd like to be able to read this in the privacy of my home so I can understand it. I got this at 5:25 this afternoon. I've glanced through it, but I certainly haven't read it. You've answered all my questions, and I'm satisfied with the answers. They're good answers. And I just think we're moving too fast. And I'll just leave it at that.
So I will say that I struggle with the statement that we've been creating the optics that we're supporting the downtown revitalization effort. I support anybody that's going to invest in the city. And that the TERS board is not being set up specifically to benefit these people, because we cannot do that. We do not do that. We are here to represent the community as a whole. This community has a lot of great assets, and we have a lot of great needs. And we have San Antonio clamoring at our doorstep. And so this is one of many different efforts to capture some of that. One of the efforts that we're using to capture that is ensuring that the new developers are actually reinvesting into the city in more areas than just their one area where they're covering up good farmland. Everything that we're doing is making sure that when people are investing in the city, that we take that and we make it for the better good. And if you look at the three things that we have to deal with right now, one of the highest priorities that we have is Highway 90. There are all kinds of issues with Highway 90. It's the walkability, it's the drivability. You can't get across Highway 90. So if we created something that could beautify it, could enhance it, could make it better for the entire community, I think that's a great area to do that in. But to capture some of that, you do have to incorporate, it is only prudent, if you think about what the investment group is doing, is they're investing in the city. We take that money and use that is being generated from that, and we use that for the better good of everybody. I don't see where that has anything to do with doing specifically things for them. We have not once said, we're going to take this money and reinvest it exactly where they are, although that is one of the places because it's historic downtown, but it's not the only place. So I don't know, aside from assumptions and lack of staying informed, that people would make that assumption because there has been no evidence by this council across the board that that's what we're doing. Not in open session, not in closed session, not in anything, but we won't talk about closed session. But we have not done anything that lends itself to that. I get that it's a concern, and I know especially for people that live around this area and have property in this area, I know that it's a big concern, making sure that we are not setting aside for specific people. That would be wrong of us, and we will not do that. We do take, I don't want to beat that to death. Further discussion?
Yeah, because, you know, we passed a resolution 6 months ago that supported anybody that would come and invest in Castroville. And in that discussion at that meeting, it was talked about the fact that we're not going to support any one group, down to development group or any one group. It's anybody that's willing to come in here and spend money to improve. You know, everybody talks about downtown, the historic downtown, and I'm big on history, and yes, I think it needs to be improved, but man, you go driving down Highway 90, and 90 was never planned. It
was just ripped through.
It's ripped through, but also the buildings there. There is absolutely, it was open season on what was built there. And, of course, it was built there when there was very little traffic, but now it's not a lot of pride going down and looking at Highway 90, and friends that drive through, they all comment. But I guess I see this as a better opportunity to try to incentivize improvements along Highway 90 than anything along, or I shouldn't say anything, but I think to me it's just as important that we try to incentivize what's going to happen along 90 as we do anywhere else in town. So, and I hope the citizens realize that the council, we are citizens. We're not benefiting from this at all individually. We're citizens. We're from these different areas where we get input from people. So it's like, it's not like, I don't know why anybody would assume that we're trying to do something underhanded here, because we are citizens. This is to benefit all of us. That's just my thoughts.
Further discussion?
I've said what I needed to say earlier. Thank you.
Okay.
Same here.
Great. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. We will continue to keep information flowing. Please do continue to let us know where we can do better.
By the way, if anybody wants to take this packet home, you're welcome to it, because I'm going to get it off the internet and keep it more condensed.
Okay, next item is consider and take appropriate action on authorizing and approving the publication and posting of a notice of intention to issue combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation in maximum aggregate principal amount not to exceed $5 million and other matters in connection therewith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Ryan Cunningham, Samco Capital, financial advisor for the city. I was here with my colleague Mark McCliney on November 28th, and we presented to you a plan of finance for $5 million of utility system improvements, a draft timeline for the forthcoming issue. So this is really the next step, the first legal step of going out, publishing a notice of intention on the city's website as well as the newspaper, notifying that the council intends to come back on February 14th and issue up to $5 million in certificates of obligation for those utility system improvements. I'm glad to go through the timeline again, or any of the numbers that we showed regarding the other expected issues down the road for the utility system, but we went over that on the 28th, so it's up to you.
Well, I just want to point out for people that didn't hear this in the past, we're talking about specifically for, this is set aside for the utility systems. This is a part of our ongoing, you look at all the maintenance that we've been doing, all of the improvements that we've been doing, this is just the funding mechanism to be able to pay for that over long term. Our credit rating is absolutely excellent. We are getting...
AA+, yes, it's outstanding, especially for the size of the city. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And we've been working very closely with Samco, our financial advisors, to ensure that we maintain fiscal responsibility. We have a tremendous reserve fund, and this is trying to make sure that we are being very responsible with the money, and this is just part of that issuance. Do I have any questions on this? Do I have a motion then? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I will move that we approve the publication and posting of a notice of intention to issue combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation in the maximum aggregate principal amount not to exceed $5 million.
Second.
Great, okay, discussion. All right, have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for all your support in this. This has been really, really helpful. I like the close communication, how well you've been working.
My pleasure.
And hanging around here all night.
We are not open to public comment yet. Oh, absolutely, no problem.
Can you put that map back in there?
I've got a map.
Oh, if you have the map, then that's the one that came out.
All right, next item is discussion on latest developments of the Castroville Medina County Joint Airport Zoning Board. So,
All right, thank you.
cool, thanks, Clay.
Thanks, Clay.
So this has been my thorn in the side this year and has consumed most of the judge's remaining days in office. So I wanted to give an update. I think that everybody knows where we stand with the board right now, and former Mayor Lee discussed it before. So where we stand right now is that the county has removed themselves from this, and I will leave all of that discussion to them. You can go back and listen to their minutes to understand why that happened. What we've talked about.
We weren't at the meeting. How do we know?
Yeah, but that is, I don't want to, I don't have verbatim what they did.
But you attended the meeting.
I did not attend the meeting.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you were there.
No, that was, and I discussed it with the judge. So, a little bit of background. Last week, the Joint Airport Zoning Board met, or they scheduled a meeting. There was a mistake, just a complete mistake of posting it correctly, so they could not meet. So the judge and I came to meet, because we knew that we'd already sent out the notices. A lot of people had questions and concerns, so we came in just to make sure that those were able to be addressed, so that people could give that feedback. We recorded it so that the Joint Airport Zoning Board could listen to it and understand what the concerns were with people. And coming out of that meeting, the judge decided to call a specially called meeting to remove themselves from that. In discussions with the county, they are supportive of, they understand the importance of this. So the fact is that, and I'm going to put a statement out on social media just so that people can understand exactly where this is. The zoning is necessary, but the way that it was put together was too restrictive, and this is something that we continue to communicate. I did personally meet with the board on a number of occasions. So did the judge. Council put forth our recommendations on how to address the severity of the limitations that we felt were violating property rights, and encouraging them through legal counsel to accept zoning that was not so restrictive and that was legally enforceable. So what we're going to do now going forward, and this is, with council support, we're not making decisions today because we had left that off of here, not anticipating we would. We will have a decision on this first meeting in January. But the way that I recommend going forward with this is actually, because of the way that it was set up, back in '91, Lacoste was in the thing. What we found out was that the predecessor to the FAA, the TDA, had recommended that they shrink the zone. When they shrunk the zone, then Lacoste and their ETJ was no longer in the zone, and so Lacoste stepped out. It wasn't Lacoste saying, hey, we don't want to be a part of this, and it wasn't them cutting a portion of out so that they weren't involved with it. It was that the whole thing was shrunk. Because the way that it stands currently, it is within that zone. We would set up the board so that Lacoste has representation, the county has representation, any governmental entity that has jurisdiction over any area in there will be on that board, so they have representation. And if the board then decides to shrink the boundaries and anybody falls out, then that one would be removed until or unless such time that they were included back in it, and then they would automatically be added on. We intend to put some checks and balances to make sure that any of the regulations that are proposed by the board in draft form would have to then go through the governmental entities that are on the board or that are represented on the board through their legal counsel, and only after that final legal approval coming back, and after the governmental entities have that opportunity to work that through with their individual like city council or commissioner's court, then it would go back to the board for final approval. So we're just trying to put some checks and balances to make sure that, that we are doing things methodically, carefully, legally, and with people having representation.
Does the board exist or no at this point? Is there a joint airport zoning board at this moment?
At this moment, there is a joint airport zoning board, to my understanding, and this is after consulting with our attorney. Right now, having a quorum is still 3 people, because the county made a motion to remove themselves from, they basically revoked their resolution in support of this. They removed their board members and sent notice, and there was one other portion of that.
Does Mr. Cherry, as the chairman, count as one of the 3 of a quorum?
Yes.
Yes.
He is a
So if
voting
Mr.
member.
Cherry and Mr. Dahlies and Ms. Malone got together, that's a quorum.
Right. So
they
if
could vote
not
past this.
Arnie is was a part of the Medina County. No, they don't have any more scheduled meetings, and I guarantee you they will not have a quorum.
Yeah, but my point is,
We can't
they
take.
could.
They will. Guaranteed.
Well, can the city follow suit and take some appropriate action after it's properly scheduled to remove their, or to rescind their support?
Yes.
So that there would no longer be anybody left on the committee except Mr. Cherry?
No, actually, what we will do, and this is working through the city attorney, is we'll work through it the next meeting. Again, this was a miscommunication. I didn't let, I wasn't clear enough with Deborah as she was writing the item, and I just, got busy and we missed that. We were supposed to have a decision tonight to deal with the board, but we don't. So the very first meeting in January, we will have a decision on there. We can't do anything unless you want to call a specially called meeting to deal with this right now.
Well, I thought, I would like to compliment you and the judge for holding that impromptu non-meeting on the 8th and recording it and putting it on the city's website so we could hear it. Because that was a very informative exchange.
Eye-opening.
And I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to hear it, but it was combative. It was not a friendly meeting. And it leads me, as an individual, I worry that Mr. Cherry may have the ability to do something that we can't undo. And I know I heard what you said. I mean, I'm not disputing it. You said the lawyer says they couldn't. But Mr. Cherry seems to do anything he wants, and he does it.
He would have to have a quorum. And
you just told me that if the 2 city representatives appeared at the meeting, that would be a quorum.
Correct.
So they could have a meeting and they could vote.
And that's only if they would, show up. And I know for a fact that one of them would not support that.
I recommend we have a meeting, we put it on the agenda, and we take appropriate action at the next meeting.
And it is an
consider
ordinance,
that.
ours is an ordinance, it's not a resolution, so we would have to, we
We
would
have to
amend
revoke
that
the ordinance, right, or rescind it, or modify it.
We probably,
I think we would probably, well, part of that is we're waiting on the attorney to come back and tell us exactly what that action is. If we determine, if there is any indication that we need to have a specially called meeting, if there is any indication that we need to have that, then absolutely we will.
So if the chairman wanted to call a meeting, the city and the county would have to post it appropriately in accordance with the TOMA, so that everybody got 5 days' notice?
I don't know. Again, we're working through this with the attorney to find out what it is. If I had any doubt that anything could be passed before we could take action, we would take a specially called meeting and push that through. I don't have any doubt.
And you would have to have a
you.
2-to-1 vote, or they'd have to vote in favor of it. You may have 3 people, but that doesn't mean they would have supported it.
But if it's quorum,
But they would still have to take a vote.
If one of the 3 people don't show up, it's not a quorum.
Correct.
yeah, I agree with you.
So they would not have a meeting, and even if they did have a meeting, they would, they wouldn't have.
Sure.
So it's non-issue. Because I also know what.
There's one more
Remember,
item.
it's
Just
not-
let's not forget to go back and pick up item 6
Yes.
before we move on.
So I guess what you're telling us, Darren, is at the next meeting, we'll be discussing.
Right. And if there is, again, if there's any indication that we need to have a specially called meeting before that, please be prepared for that, and we will do that.
Sounds good.
I'd like some clarification on that.
This because I wasn't here for these 2 meetings and there wouldn't be a quorum.
I'd like to know if the council is comfortable with leaving the city ordinance as it is, or if we believe we should put an item on the agenda to discuss and vote on whether we want to change it. Is that allowed in tonight's discussion?
We cannot make a decision tonight. That is not on the agenda. Again, that was the intent, and it did not happen. If there's any indication that we need to have a specially called meeting to do that, then we will do that. Otherwise, it will be on the very next agenda on our very first meeting in January.
And we have an item on here on discussion on future agenda items
Yep.
that we can,
I believe that I don't remember if the ordinance we passed also included the association or relationship with the county. And if it did, then it's a mute.
in 1992 was when this was done. In 1990, they passed an ordinance, and then they passed a second ordinance removing the cost. And then in 92 is when the board was activated, and they went through the process, because they've already got zones out there. A lot of people didn't realize, I think they do have some zones out there already.
So believe me, and this, I'm going to say this two ways, and I'll clarify it when I make the public statement. That is, the zone needs to happen. The airport is an important part of the community, and this should not be a one versus the other. This should not be the airport versus the property owners. We're not trying to do one thing. We're not choosing one over the other. We're trying to figure out how to live in harmony and how to be respectful. I mean, we have people that have invested out in the airport. We have businesses that run there. But it's absolutely important that we do that. And we have a great aviation history here. I think that as long as we're not taking from one to support the other, kind of like what we talked about for the downtown, we don't take away from the general citizens to give specifically to one group. It's the same thing with this. So I fully support creating this zone correctly, properly, methodically, and legally. And if I had any doubt that would not happen, then absolutely we would have an agenda item immediately to do that. I don't see that there is, with what is in place currently, there is no way that somebody could manipulate the system and sneak something in and get it passed.
Just one more comment. Listening to the audio tape, it's clear, in my opinion, what I heard was there 7 criteria that need to be addressed according to the FAA. There wasn't a very good explanation, but it was a pretty good explanation, but it was still a little fuzzy. So I see 7 criteria out there, and from what I heard on the tape, each one of those criteria has a minimum and a maximum of restriction, if you would say.
Not
like in height.
Well, actually, let me correct your understanding there. So the restrictions, we finally just got, after the meeting, we finally got the written, I guess, specifications, the minimum requirements from the TxDOT Aviation. They sent us over what the actual minimum requirements are. We just got that.
Okay.
So we'll make sure that that's provided. We'll talk about that in the next meeting, but because we just got it, we need to work that through. But that's part of what we'll do in working with the attorney. So our city attorney is going to be working with the attorney of Lacoste and working with the county's attorney to make sure that as we recreate this, we do it in such a way that it has to follow that.
Yeah, but that's what was missing.
Right.
That was the,
I know. We missed that
the
guidance.
part that didn't come across in the meeting. You know, if we have the 7 criteria and we have the minimum and maximum for each criterion, then it's pretty easy to see there's the range of possible solutions. Right. We want to move from the position that's untenable now to find some common ground in the middle where everybody can be happy. And that seems like a pretty logical process.
Absolutely.
But it's not moving. It's not happening.
It will happen part of that is because we want to make sure that we're doing this legally, and we're missing a bunch of information. Cindy's been working on this since last week. As we've gone through this, again, like everything else, it's moving really fast. So she is going through it, and we will have something prepared by our first meeting in January, and she will be coordinating with the attorney from the city of Lacoste, who's actually a property owner in there, and with the attorney from the county. So they'll work through those and make sure that that's included in there. And that would be a part of, when they look at this, making sure that it is legal, but also as representatives of the community, we need to make sure that it is fair. So we'll have all of that information, what the TxDOT Aviation provided for us. We'll make sure that we get that out. We'll put it on the same site. Did you guys see the site? Were you able to find on the website where they're keeping, I know right now it's just a list of a bunch of documents. Were you able to see where we're maintaining that documentation on the city's website?
Yes.
Public notices.
David has it in the email from Jim Alley, and it was distributed to the 5 of us, plus a couple others, but yeah.
Okay.
But the other documentation is under public notices. A lot of the documentation that we've had on the drafts and such are under public notices. That page.
This was just something that Friday it showed up as there.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't have that.
Yeah, I actually just got that
Okay.
yesterday, I think.
And we'll get that up too. I mean, if we need to.
Yeah, well, I think that as we go through this, as we start to put this stuff together, we'll put it out. We've got a great distribution list. Luckily, a lot of people have shown up to it. A lot of people have asked questions about it. Again, reaching out on social media, I put out the locations and the instructions on how to get more information. And so we'll put some of this. Sometimes it's hard to just look at a stack of documents and understand what it is, so we'll put some guidance out.
A lot of people calling, asking questions for which I don't have any answers.
Right.
I probably
we'll make
got
sure
close
that-
to 100 now on one agenda group.
So here's what we can do also. I'll work with Deborah on putting together some instructions for what people can do when they have questions, and that way if people are asking you, you can make sure that you send them in the correct direction, and just gives you the ability to inform them a little bit better. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd love to see the website update
Yeah.
regularly.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion on that? Okay, so expect that on the next agenda item. Thank you. Item 6, because Councilman King is back. So on the consent agenda, we have minutes for October 25th, 2022, regular called city council meeting. Excuse me, minutes for November 8th, 2022, regular call city council meeting, and minutes for November 28th, 2022, special called city council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agendas?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
One abstention.
One abstention. And Councilman Carey abstained on items B and C, correct?
Well, basically all of it,
Abstain.
kind of, sort of.
What's that?
I guess he kind of abstained from all of it.
Did you abstain from the first one or just the second two?
Just the second two.
I didn't
But
hear you.
But the motion was for all three, and that's fine.
Yes.
I'm still abstaining.
Okay, perfect.
It's okay.
Thank you. All right, next item is discussion on future agenda items. So on here, we have the Joint Airport Zoning Board ordinance, and we will make sure that there is description and action on that one. What else are we missing?
I got something that I'd like for us, the city, to broadcast out, give the information, and get it recorded in our meeting minutes. I talked to David today, David Kirkpatrick, came in the store, and the city Public Works is in the process of setting it up to where they get people to come work there as an apprenticeship type school. So, and we will be the only one in the area bringing these people in, whether they're separating from the military, graduated from high school, bringing them in and doing an apprenticeship for all the different things that Public Works does.
Oh, that's cool.
So that would be awesome for them to come and brief us on it. That way, one, we can get it out there to the people for everybody to know what we're doing to try and support the city and the citizens and everything, but also grow our people type thing.
So I think that what we can do on that one, because we're also doing a veterans job fair on January 18th. There'll be notice that's going to be sent out. We're working with ACOG and with a bunch of folks from JBSA. So that's going to be from 10 to 2 is going to be military and veterans and their families, and then from noon to 2, it'll be open to the public. We're working with the high school on some of their seniors so that they can come in. So I think that we provide an update on the apprenticeship program from the city and on what's going on with the Veterans Job Fair.
Yeah, because that's, it's great stuff. I mean.
And the veterans, I'm sorry, the veterans was when? February?
It'll be January 18th.
January 18th.
Right.
And it's
And
probably
Darren-
going to be on your next report, I'm sure, all this.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is
We've been
we'll,
off
discussion on future agenda items, we'll have an update on the apprenticeship for for Public Works and on the Veterans Job Fair. Okay, great. Any other items?
None at this time.
Don't we have to have an executive session to review to discuss the city manager's contract? Isn't
That's
that
already gonna
required
be
to
on
Yeah, that's on the pending
list.
agenda.
Yeah, it's already on.
Yeah, and again, if there's anything else that you want, so we've always got the pending list that's available to you, but I wanted to leave this item in case there was something that we missed, or if you wanted to discuss anything that was on there, because I found that we got, a couple of times, we got to the end of the meeting and we couldn't discuss the things that were on the pending list, so that's why this item's here. Okay, all right. If there's nothing else, we are through the agenda and we are adjourned at 7:16.
Thank you.
I was trying to do this in an hour. I'm on vacation today.